Bitcoin. It is a word that you may have heard countless times if you are watching our videos relentlessly. No matter which coin is trending, what events are unfolding in the entire ecosystem, there is absolutely a way for us to relate these things to Bitcoin, and it is not something that we only do as a promotion effort. Bitcoin is the face of crypto, and all things happening in the ecosystem have become tied to it. As such, may it be within or without the own market of Bitcoin, has become a determinant in the price of the asset. With everything that has been happening in the market today, where does the price of Bitcoin stand? Is it really a good time to be bullish about it? In today's video, we will be talking about the price prediction for Bitcoin and whether or not it is high time to be bullish about it. We'll be having Gareth Soloway's thoughts featured in today's video to help us dissect everything. So, let's get going. Like many other experts in the field, Gareth Soloway believes that the drops experienced in crypto and Bitcoin are all a sign that we might be nearing an amazing surge in the price of one coin in the future. If you have been around for some time, you must have been there when he first predicted that Bitcoin's price would jump to as high as $20,000. Now, with volatility being the name of the game, these predictions can change as quickly as the actual price of Bitcoin changes. Did Gareth's prediction change given the circumstances? Let's learn from the man himself.
Some other blow-ups, but you're not seeing it to the extent where a true bottom is in yet. So we need to see that absolute fear and panic, the washout of all the weak hands. And then that's where, again, I go contrarian. I say, okay, this is really max pain. Now I start, looking on the bullish side.
And I want to get an update from you. Has your thesis changed? You called $20,000. You've been highlighting that potentially we can go below 20 to maybe the 13K range, 12, 13K range. What's happening from your perspective?
Yeah, so it still looks very, very plausible. And I'd like to just point out the fact that, the bounce we saw in Bitcoin, if you looked at it and compared it to the stock market, has been really, really weak, right? So you can see this kind of angle of this bounce. And then we obviously are already retesting this area here, which is around 19,500 to 600. Now, the reason that's a significant level is that happens to be the 2017 high. So that's a big point, right? That is a big, big level. And again, if you compare it to the stock market, if you look at the NASDAQ, for instance, the NASDAQ had a much more sharp incline. So to me, that tells me there's relative weakness in Bitcoin. And while I still think there's always going to be bounces along the way on Bitcoin, it does concern me that we didn't see a bigger bounce in Bitcoin off of this level to start with. And it does tell me that whenever we see a big sell-off in the overall asset market, Bitcoin probably is still headed down to 12 to 13,000, maybe even lower. So again, it doesn't mean we can't have a bounce here. Basically, right now, the dollar is in control. If the dollar has a small pullback, crypto, stocks, they'll all bounce. But again, you have to just wonder, what's the Fed going to do in September when it comes to their rate decision? You have gun-shy investors that are very wary of crypto right now because of Terra Luna, because of Celsius. Again, you don't get FDIC insurance on your crypto account. So then if someone steals your funds, they're gone. There's so many different things that are negative. And I think one of the biggest ones is there's this regulation that's looming out there, right? We know the judge is kind of deciding about the Ripple case. Gary Gensler is saying, hey, everything but Bitcoin basically is a security. And what the heck does that mean? No one knows really what the rules are going to be if it's not a commodity like Bitcoin. Instead, it's a security. And so I think it's creating this kind of period where no one wants to commit big capital. Sure, if someone buys a little bit here, whatever there, but you're not seeing big money go into crypto right now. And without that, it's very hard to get big bounces.
What do you think they do next month? Do we get another 50 basis points or 75 basis points hike?
Yeah, so I'm in the camp of 50 basis points in September. I think the rest of the year, you'll probably only see 25. I do think that the Fed is talking a tough game because they have to, right? If they all of a sudden started talking a dovish game, what would happen? Asset prices would surge and then inflation would start going up, because when asset prices go up, everyone feels richer, so they're willing to spend more money, right? So he's got to talk a tough game, but the bottom line is that they will back off when the economy economy gets weaker, and it's already starting. We just haven't seen the jobs numbers get weak yet. And I think Friday's jobs number is going to be really important to the overall market based on what is it going to tell us will the likely outcome of the Fed next decision be. So I think the Fed talks a tough game, but they know deep down that whenever we get into a recession, if it gets bad and inflation is still, let's say, 4 or 5%, they can't print us out like they have done the last many recessions. And that's scary. Like, the market at some point has to come to that realization that the Fed is not going to swoop in and save the day. And I think that's a big issue that we haven't even touched on yet in the markets.
So what we are seeing from this is there is indeed a friction or tension that is shown by the recent lows that we are seeing in the Bitcoin, especially when put side to side with Nasdaq. It is enough for Gareth to be concerned, but still, he's given us the assurance that it is not the worst situation Bitcoin has been in, and the likelihood of getting a bounce is still there. Once the dollar indeed pulls back even by a little, we are going to see the price bounce up once more. So you can worry a little, but do not be frantic. If there's one thing we need to keep an eye on, according to Gareth, that is the Feds and what they will be doing in the month of September to regulate the investments coming into the space. We've reported on them in the past videos we made so far, and investors are rethinking their decisions whether or not it would be rewarding to invest in crypto, given the case of other projects like TERRA and Celsius that have gone downhill for the wrong reasons. Nobody wants to invest in a risky project, and with Bitcoin's current behavior, the doubts of the investors are justified. Additionally, assets stored in the market essentially are not insured, so there's no way to retrieve them and even receive some kind of compensation for it. There's also the case with Ripple that also builds up on the tension while final decisions are underway. Even with Bitcoin being there and their supporters campaigning for it as a security where they can hold on for long, even with the outside environment not being so efficient. But this is something that Bitcoin cannot carry in its entirety, the whole market, especially when the entry of capital is dependent on the trust that investors put in it. So unless there will be some sort of effective intervention from the Feds, we will continue to only see small amounts of capital entering the systems and potentially foregoing the big ones. When asked about what the outcome of the Fed's decision will be, this is what Gareth said.
Part of the reason Ethereum has outperformed percentage-wise. So if we go to the Ethereum chart, right, if you looked at where we bottomed out, it was around 800 and change. We went as high as 2,000. So Ethereum rallied over 100% from the low to the recent high. Now, if you compare that to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin didn't even get close to that. So I do attribute some of the Ethereum rally to be the excitement around the merge. Now, the question is, after the merge, what ends up happening here? Do we still see more upside? Does it kind of translate into just a stronger Ethereum price or not? My guess is short-term, no. But I do think what the merge is going to do to Ethereum, being slightly deflationary and having other aspects to it, I do think it potentially puts Ethereum in position to rival the market cap of Bitcoin down the line. But again, when I say down the line, we're talking years out. Short term, fear and greed always rule. And I think fear will take over. When Bitcoin goes to 12, 13,000, my guess is Ethereum's headed much, much lower as well. Down the line, Ethereum starts to rebound and maybe even rivals that market cap of Bitcoin. If we do get a big bounce, the 200 moving average on Ethereum is around 2150. So I'd be hard pressed to think we'll get above that. So I think that's your best case scenario. I'm nervous that we don't even get there and that maybe we get a bounce into the merge and then a sell the news event afterwards. So it's tough to know. I mean, bottom line is I think as an investor I love Ethereum, I like Bitcoin as well. For me, it's when we get down towards these lows, when we break lows, if Bitcoin starts going to like 15, 12,000, I'm just going to basically start dollar cost averaging with small positions. And basically the thought process there is that I truly believe in Ethereum and Bitcoin. The other ones, it's kind of the rulings out on those at this point. But those you just kind of slowly inch in, understanding they could still go a lot lower, but knowing or at least having the probability that in a year, 5 years, 10 years, they'll be much, much higher.
Of course, Gareth shared his thoughts with the upcoming merge and how it could potentially be the jumpstart we need for an actual bounce to happen. so it even seems like even Gareth himself is having difficulty trying to determine whether or not the merge would actually do something massive. Although he does recognize the fact that much of the rally that happened in the network can be attributed to the excitement that surrounds the merge, which is the transition of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. If it happens that Ethereum's price dips lower than Bitcoin, there's a possibility that when it bounces, it will be at a rate that is at par with the Bitcoin's market cap. For Gareth, though, everything will start to turn bullish once the value of the coin hits somewhere around $12 to $13, though he also believes that there is a tendency for the value to drop even lower than that. If it is likely that it will go lower, there's really no downside, or at least there will only be a limited amount of downside that we can ever expect because it is the absolute lowest there is, unlike when Bitcoin is valued a little higher only to drop low, where the downsides are staggering. So really, what we need to be on the lookout for is how much risk there would be if it ever comes to a point that the valuation would decrease, and also keep watching for the regulations that may or may not be helpful in the flow of the capital in the market. And as bad as it sounds, it's when you see people getting scared that Bitcoin might be crashing that you actually want to start getting bullish on the coin. And that is it for today's video. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. As always, if you did, please show us some love and support by giving this video a big thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. And make sure to keep your notifications on so you will be updated whenever we post new videos on all things related to crypto. This has been Diversified Streams. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in our next video.